The night sky over Montana was quiet until a sudden streak of silver light broke across the horizon. At first, people thought it was a falling star, but then the ground shook and a glow spread across the valley. Farmers left their porches. Children pressed their faces to windows, and within minutes, half the town was driving toward the open field where the light had landed. The object wasn't fire, and it wasn't a plane. It was something alive, humming with a low sound that made the air tremble. When it opened, a figure stepped out. She looked like a girl, young and fragile, but there was something unearthly about her. Her hair caught the light as though each strand was made of silver glass. Her eyes shimmered in colors no one could name. She stood still, barefoot in the tall grass, looking around as if she didn't belong. At first, no one dared move closer. But curiosity was stronger than fear, and soon a man in uniform stepped forward. He stretched out his hand, speaking words meant to calm. Before his fingers even brushed her skin, his body dissolved into a burst of dust, scattered into the night air. Gasps and screams followed, and the crowd stumbled back in terror. That was the first lesson everyone learned about her. No one could touch her. Anyone who tried vanished into nothing. The government arrived quickly. Trucks and barriers circled the field. Soldiers carried weapons. Scientists carried instruments. And the town was told to keep away. Yet people kept coming, standing at a distance, whispering about her beauty, her danger, her loneliness. No one knew her name, only that she didn't speak our language at first. Eventually, through careful listening and strange devices, one word repeated itself when she pointed to her own chest. Lyra. Lyra didn't attack, didn't resist, didn't ask for anything. She only stood near her strange silver craft, watching the stars as though she longed to return. Weeks passed, and the initial fear turned to fascination. She became both mystery and curse, the girl from the stars who could never be touched. Children drew pictures of her. Newspapers printed grainy photographs. To some, she was a miracle. To others, a warning. But no one spoke to her the way Ethan Carter did. Ethan was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a schoolteacher, known in town for his quiet nature and gentle patience with children. He had lost his parents young, and later his fiancée had left him without warning. He carried his life like a man half asleep, going through the motions of teaching. Grading papers, eating alone, and walking home past empty streets. When the ship landed, he didn't rush to see it. But when he finally did, something inside him shifted. He didn't see a dangerous creature. He didn't see a mystery to solve. He saw her face so human, yet so distant he recognized something familiar, the look of someone alone. From that day, Ethan went to the field each evening. He stood just outside the barrier. While others kept their distance or hurled questions, she never answered. He didn't ask her anything. He only spoke. He told her about his students, about the pranks they played, about the essays filled with misspelled words that made him laugh. He told her about the smell of coffee in the morning, the silence of his classroom after everyone left, the way autumn crept through town with red leaves crunching underfoot. Lyra never replied, but she didn't walk away either. Sometimes her gaze flickered to him, and when the wind stirred her silver hair, Ethan thought he saw the faintest trace of a smile, fragile and unsure. The others noticed. They called him foolish, reckless, even cursed. "Don't get too close," they warned. "Don't think she's like us." But Ethan didn't stop. He felt drawn by something he couldn't explain, as though fate had left her there, not for the world to study, but for him to see. One evening, when the sun was setting and painting the mountains gold, Ethan stepped closer than before. The soldiers shouted a warning, but he ignored them. Lyra's eyes lifted, catching the fading light. And for the first time, she spoke in a voice like wind moving through glass. "You know what happens if you come closer?" Her words were clear. Perfect, as though she had learned enough of his language to warn him. Ethan froze, every part of him aware of the danger. He had seen what happened to the first man. He had no doubt the same fate waited for him. Yet his heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something deeper. "I know," he he said quietly, his voice steady. "But I also know you look like you don't want to be alone anymore." Her expression faltered. The light in her eyes softened, and for a moment she looked almost human, almost breakable, almost in need. The field grew silent. Even the soldiers stopped shouting. The air was heavy with tension, as if the whole world waited to see if Ethan would reach for her, if Lyra would let him. If the curse that turned men to dust would claim him too. But Ethan didn't move closer. Not yet. Instead, he stood still, giving her the one thing no one else had offered: patience. That was the beginning. The beginning of something the world didn't understand, something that could destroy them both, or perhaps save them. Because in that fading light, with the mountains casting long shadows, Ethan Carter looked at the alien girl and felt his heart wake up for the first time in years. And Lyra, the untouchable girl from the stars, lowered her gaze not in rejection, but in something far more dangerous: hope. The first night Ethan spoke to her and lived, people thought it was luck. The second night they called him reckless. By the third night, even the soldiers stopped trying to pull him away because Lyra didn't harm him. She didn't move, didn't threaten, didn't vanish him into dust. She only listened to Ethan came every evening after teaching at the small-town school. His life followed a simple rhythm: children's laughter, chalk on a board, the sound of a bell ending the day. Yet when dusk fell, his feet carried him back to the field. The fences and warning signs were still there, but he walked past them as if they meant nothing. At first, he talked just to fill the silence. He told Lyra about the students who tied shoelaces together as pranks, about the boy who couldn't stop asking questions about space, about the girl who painted stars on her notebooks and dreamed of being an astronaut. Lyra didn't reply, but sometimes she tilted her head slightly, her eyes catching the light like liquid glass. That small movement was enough to keep him coming back. After a week, Ethan began sharing pieces of himself. Not the surface details, but the things he never told anyone. He told her about his parents, who had been taken too early in a car accident, leaving him with more silence than he knew how to bear. He told her about the woman he had once loved, who left when she realized Ethan carried more grief than he could ever explain. "She wanted someone lighter," he said quietly one night. "And I was heavy." Lyra's face softened. She didn't speak, but in her eyes there was something almost human understanding. Maybe your sorrow. As days stretched into weeks, the distance between them felt heavier than walls. Ethan longed to sit closer, to know if she was real beneath the glow, to feel the warmth of another hand in his after years of emptiness. But the memory of that first soldier turning into dust stayed sharp in his mind. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in violet and gold, Lyra finally spoke again. Her voice was soft, fragile, yet clear. "Why do you come here?" Ethan froze, stunned by the sound. For weeks, she had said nothing, only listened, and now her words fell like a secret gift. He swallowed hard. "Because you look like you don't want to be alone." Her eyes shimmered. For a moment she looked away, toward the stars above. "Alone is safer," she whispered. "For you. For everyone." Ethan shook his head. "Maybe safer, but not better." And that night marked a change. Lyra began asking small questions. Simple things at first. What is a classroom? Why do leaves change color? Why do people sing? Ethan answered each one with patience, his words spilling into the quiet air like offerings. He described the feeling of holding a pencil for the first time, the way autumn smelled of smoke and apples, the way music could make even a broken heart feel alive for a moment. Lyra listened as if every word mattered. She never moved closer, never risked letting him touch her. But the distance between them began to feel less like a wall and more like a fragile bridge. The town noticed. Whispers spread through diners, school halls, and church steps. Some said Ethan had fallen under her spell. Others insisted he was wasting his life talking to something that would never belong. But Ethan didn't care. When he sat across from her, the loneliness inside him didn't feel so heavy. When her eyes softened, he felt as if he had found someone who understood the ache he'd carried, Still, temptation grew. Each night he wanted to step closer. Just one step. Just one touch. But he forced himself to stay where he was, speaking instead of reaching. One night, when the stars burned bright and the field was silent, except for the hum of her ship, Lyra said something that stopped his breath. "I was not made for your world. My kind cannot live with yours. To love me would mean ending yourself." The words hung between them, sharp and final. Ethan's heart clenched, but he didn't look away. "What if love is worth that?" he asked softly. Lyra's lips parted as if to answer, but no words came. Her hand lifted slightly, trembling, before she pulled it back to her chest. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, Ethan thought he saw pain. It's not just loneliness. From that night forward, their conversations carried weight. He told her about choices, about how humans sometimes chose what wasn't safe because the heart wanted more than safety. She told, "The night Ethan raised his hand toward Lyra, the whole field felt like it was caught between two heartbeats. The soldiers stood frozen, unsure whether to pull him back or watch history unfold. The air shimmered with her strange energy, sparks floating like dust in sunlight. Ethan's fingertips trembled inches from hers, and for one terrifying second he thought this would be the end of him. But Lyra pulled her hand away at the last moment, her breath sharp, her eyes filled with fear. "Don't," she whispered. "Not yet." Ethan lowered his hand slowly, his chest pounding. Then when? She turned her face to the stars, her silver hair stirring in the cold air. "When I can believe it won't destroy you." That answer left Ethan awake the entire night. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the way she had looked at him, torn between longing and terror. He knew what everyone else said. She was dangerous, cursed, untouchable. But all he could think of was how human her fear had looked, how fragile her voice had sounded. The next day at school, his students noticed his distraction. A boy asked him why stars seemed to twinkle, and for once, Ethan couldn't find the words. His mind was in the field with her. By evening, he was back at the fence, walking toward her without hesitation. Lyra was waiting. She always was. She studied him quietly, her expression unreadable, until she said, "You shouldn't keep coming here, yet you keep waiting," Ethan replied softly. Her gaze dropped to the ground, but she didn't deny it. That small silence was all the truth he needed. Days turned into weeks. Their conversations deepened. Ethan asked about her world, and Lyra, though hesitant, gave him fragments. She spoke of skies that burned brighter than Earth's, of oceans that glowed with light instead of waves, of people who lived without ever touching one another. "We don't know closeness," she admitted one night. "We know survival, knowledge, distance, always distance. Our hands are weapons. Our bodies are storms. We are taught never to reach out." Ethan listened, his chest aching with every word. "Then maybe that's why you're here," he said. "To finally learn what it means to be close." She shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her hope flickered there. No matter how hard she tried to hide it, soon the whispers in town grew louder. People claimed Ethan was bewitched. Some wanted him fired from the school. Parents worried he was teaching their children dangerous ideas, filling their heads with stories of a creature who should have been locked away. Ethan ignored them all. At night, under the endless sky, none of those voices mattered. Only hers did. But one evening, Lyra's voice carried a weight he had never heard before. She spoke slowly, as if each word was a burden. "Ethan, I wasn't meant to stay. My people will come. When they do, they won't ask questions. They will take me back. And if you stand in their way, they will erase you." Ethan's stomach tightened. The thought of losing her was unbearable. "Then don't go," he said quickly. "Stay. Stay here with me." Lyra's eyes shone with sorrow. "I can't. My body alone is danger. If I touched anyone else, if I lost control, I would destroy this place. I would destroy you." Her words cut through him, but Ethan stepped closer, defying the tingling air that warned him away. "You're not a weapon. You're not a curse. You're Lyra, and I see more humanity in you than I've seen in most people." Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to believe him. Her hand lifted slightly, shaking as though fighting against every rule her people had ever given her. You don't understand. I could end you with one touch. How can you love something that could break you so easily? Ethan's voice was steady, though his throat burned with emotion. Because love isn't about safety. It's about worth. And you're worth everything. Lyra's breath caught. She closed her eyes, and for a long moment the night was filled with silence so deep it hurt. When she opened them again, her gaze was blazing. Fierce and fragile all at once. Ethan Carter, she whispered, his name trembling on her lips. If you reach for me again, I won't stop you. But if you do, you may not survive it. And I couldn't bear that. The choice was there, hanging between them like a cliff's edge. Touch her and risk vanishing into nothing. Hold back and lose the only connection his heart had ever truly craved. Ethan stood trembling, torn between fear and longing. His mind screamed with the memory of the soldier turning to dust, but his heart remembered her eyes, her loneliness, her whispered wish to know what it meant to hold someone. Slowly, he lifted his hand again. The soldiers in the distance shouted warnings, their voices sharp in the cold air. Ethan ignored them. He was no longer a teacher, no longer a man of routine and quiet grief. He was simply a soul reaching for another. Lyra's hand hovered, her fingers glowing faintly, her entire body shaking. The sparks around her grew brighter, forming a fragile halo of light. She looked terrified, yet she didn't move away this time. Why? She breathed, her voice breaking. Why risk everything? Ethan's eyes never left hers. Because no one deserves to live without love. Not even you. Her lips parted, her breath unsteady. Slowly, her hand extended, trembling like a fragile branch in the wind. The air burned between them, every spark daring him to pull away. But Ethan pressed forward, closer and closer, until the space left was no more than a breath. The night froze. The field fell silent. The stars above seemed to lean closer, as if even the universe needed to see what would happen. And in that fragile heartbeat, Ethan's fingertips brushed hers. The world held its breath, the moment Ethan's fingers brushed Lyra's hand. The world seemed to stop. The sparks that had shimmered around her body flared bright, racing like lightning through the air. The soldiers tensed, expecting to see Ethan dissolve into dust. But nothing happened. Instead, warmth spread from her skin into his. Not burning, not breaking, but real gentle warmth, like holding sunlight. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time in her life, someone had touched her and lived. Her hand trembled in his, fragile as glass, but Ethan didn't let go. He closed his fingers slowly, afraid that if he moved too quickly, the miracle would shatter. Lyra's lips parted, and tears gathered in her strange, shimmering eyes. It's not possible, she whispered, her voice shaking. It's real, Ethan said, his own voice thick with emotion. You're real. And so am I, and nothing is going to take this away. Lyra's breath caught, and for the first time since she had landed, her body relaxed. Her head bowed slightly, as though the weight she had carried for years finally loosened. The soldiers in the distance didn't know what to do. Some lowered their weapons, others simply stared. But Ethan and Lyra didn't notice. In that moment, there was only them. For Lyra, the sensation was overwhelming. She had never known touch, never known the closeness humans took for granted. To feel his hand against hers was like stepping into sunlight after a lifetime of shadows. She closed her eyes, trembling, afraid she would break the moment if she opened them again. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, not from fear, but from awe. He had touched her, and he was still here. The girl no one else could reach was now holding on to him as though he was the only anchor she had. He brushed his thumb lightly across her knuckles, and she let out a small, startled sound. Half gasp, half laugh, as though the simple motion was both too much and not enough. It feels, she began, but her voice faltered. It feels like life. Ethan smiled, though tears burned in his eyes. That's because it is. For a few perfect moments, they stood hand in hand, two souls defying every law, written in the stars. But the universe does not stay silent for long. High above, Lyra's ship pulsed with sudden light. A signal, sharp and bright, flared into the sky. She stiffened, pulling her gaze upward, her face pale. "They found me," she whispered. Ethan's chest tightened. "Your people?" She nodded slowly, her hand still clutching his, as if letting go would mean losing herself. "They'll come for me. They won't understand this. They'll see you as danger." Ethan's grip tightened. "Then we'll make them understand." Lyra shook her head, her silver hair falling across her face. "You don't know them. They don't forgive. They don't question. They take what belongs to them and erase what doesn't." The words chilled Ethan, but he didn't back away. He had just touched her, just felt the miracle of her hand in his. He couldn't let it end so soon. "Then let them come," he said firmly. "I won't let them take you without a fight." Her eyes filled with sorrow. "Ethan, if you fight them, you'll die." "Maybe," he admitted, his voice steady. "But if I let them take you, I'll lose you anyway. And that would be worse." Lyra looked at him as though she had never seen anything like him before. In her world, survival meant distance, silence, obedience. But here was a man willing to risk everything for something her. People didn't even believe in love. The night stretched long. The glow in the sky grew brighter, a promise that her people were drawing near. Lyra's hand squeezed his once more, desperate, as if memorizing the shape of him before it was too late. "You've given me something I never thought I'd have," she said softly. "I know what it means now. To be close. To be loved. But when they come, I don't know if I'll have the strength to leave you." "Then don't," Ethan whispered. "Stay." Her tears spilled over, glittering like liquid starlight. "If I stay, they'll destroy this place, your town, your people, you." The truth pressed heavy between them. Ethan had no answer, only the ache of knowing that the universe itself wanted to separate them. He lifted his free hand,